Good evening and welcome to this special meeting of the Journal Square Community Association Green Committee, Sustainable JC, and Food and Water Watch. Thanks to all who are joining us, especially those who braved the elements on this dark and stormy night to be here in person, as well as those of you joining us via Zoom. I'm Bill Armbruster, Chair of the Journal Square Community Association's Green Committee. We're pleased to be co-hosting this special meeting with our friends from Sustainable JC, with whom we co-host the monthly meeting of the Green Committee, and our new friends from Food and Water Watch. Before proceeding to outline tonight's program, I also want to thank Hudson County Community College for allowing us to use this wonderful facility for this meeting, especially Veronica Drosmo of HCC. We're going to be focusing tonight primarily on the environmental and health threats posed by the proposed New Jersey Transit Power Plant in Kearney, and along with an alternative plan that would use clean, renewable energy. Matt Smith of Food and Water Watch will lead that discussion and will introduce two guest speakers, Dr. Sarah Evans of Mount Sinai Hospital, who will discuss the threats to public health, and Ken Dolsky, who will discuss the clean energy alternative. After that, we'll have Q&A on the power plant for a few minutes. And Sam DeFalco of Food and Water Watch, together with Matt Smith, will be coordinating the Q&A. Next, we'll hear from John Reichman, who will discuss the Turnpike expansion. After he finishes, we'll have a few minutes for Q&A on the Turnpike. Our final speaker will be Sam Pessin, president of the Friends of Liberty State Park, who will discuss threats to the park. After Sam speaks, we'll have a few minutes for Q&A on the park. After that, time permitting, we'll circle back to take more questions on any of the topics we're discussing tonight. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce my good friend, Deb Italiano, founder and chair of Sustainable Jersey City, the preeminent environmental organization here in the city. Deb, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Bill. Yes, we are good friends. I enjoy working with you very much. And we are trying to expand these monthly meetings, for individuals and other community organizations in a discussion group, a community forum about sustainability and resiliency matters to Jersey City. So tune in every third Wednesday at 7 p.m. Everyone is welcome. So I think what I'd like to do, and Victoria helped me here because I want to scroll down a bit. I just want to introduce, some of the work that we do is to visualize graphically some of these complex issues. And we found that story maps work a lot to help the public understand, right, what's going on. So if you scroll down a bit, what we did, and this is, relevant to what would be Empower New Jersey's John Reichman talk a little bit into the agenda. The Turnpike extension, scroll down just a little bit. What we overlaid is what is proposed, the current transportation corridors a little bit further. So these are all story maps about the environmental conditions in Jersey City. I invite you all to look at this on sustainablejc.org under the Learning Center. You'll see a tab that reads maps. Go at this at your heart's content over a cup of tea. So if we come down, well, a little bit up, I think you passed it. Passed it. There it is. So there's a link above that, right above that, where you can get to the right there, that green link. Good. So what we did was just, and we were just awarded a huge EPA grant to do air quality monitoring in Jersey City. Not sure if folks know, but Jersey City has the highest rate of asthma in Hudson County. And prevalence, which are two different things, right? The prevalence, which is the propensity, and there's underlying causes for that. And it's never been shown that there's a direct correlation around environmental factors. So what we're trying to do is show the obvious, which if this is the transportation, the turnpike expansion proposal, and then scroll down a little bit, Victoria, if we can go to the next slide. There's just 2 slides here. So this is what probably a lot of you have seen in the press, which is that graphic. But here's the graphic that makes this a little bit more compelling. This is Asthma Alley in Jersey City, right? I live downtown here, right? Some of you live uptown here. I'm not sure who we have in the room, but clearly as it gets more orange and red, that's a more extreme circumstance, right? And I don't know that many of you know this. I learned this some years ago when the Environmental Commission was reconstituted in Jersey City, but the westerly winds coming from, across the country into and across the Hackensack River on the west side of Jersey City, onto that west side and across, are bringing with it from the ports of Elizabeth and Newark, the incinerators, all the pollutants and those extreme bad air quality elements into Jersey City, causing some of this problem. I was told that I couldn't actually state that there's causality around that or these transportation corridors, which you can see envelop that Asthma Alley circumstance. So what we did was propose to the EPA, and they just awarded us $500,000 to do permanently installed air quality monitoring in Jersey City. So tonight's topic around the emissions that are going to come, and if we come up about here, I think right about up here, yeah, that's where the proposed Kearney power plant, methane power plant, is potentially going to be located. So more emissions, methane, of course, being more toxic than even carbon dioxide, right? So this is something that we're working now with Food and Water Watch to enhance, showing not only what's going on with the current circumstances around transportation corridors, but what about these other proposed fossil fuel, projects in the state, and how is that going to impact us? So with that, I just want to give a snapshot here. We have a huge problem with air quality already, right? And now we have something that's coming at us, which Food and Water Watch will inform you better about. So I want to hand this back to Bill.
Thank you, Deb. And now Matt Smith of Food and Water Watch will talk.
Yes, please. Thank you so much, Bill and Deborah, and welcome everyone. It's great to be here in Jersey City at Hudson County Community College. And yeah, especially with 2 great local anchor organizations, the Journal Square Community Association and Sustainable Jersey City, who have been doing work on critical issues here impacting Jersey City residents and the local community. Because I think that's when we're at our best, is when we're following the lead and partnering with local groups. So thank you, Bill, and thank you, Deborah, and everyone who's active on issues in the community. It's also great to be here in Jersey City because in many ways, Jersey City was at the forefront of the first time that we won on this issue, or at least we thought we had won on this issue, which I'll get into a little bit more detail as we move into the presentation. But my name is Matt Smith. I'm the New Jersey Director for Food and Water Watch and Food and Water Action. We're a national organization with a state office here in New Brunswick, New Jersey, where we've been organizing for the last 12 years on issues affecting healthy food and safe food, clean, affordable, locally controlled drinking water, and more increasingly, issues around climate change and energy. And tonight we're going to be focused on one of the 7 fossil fuel projects that are currently proposed in the state of New Jersey that Deborah had alluded to. That is the New Jersey Transit Grid project, which is proposing a large new gas-fired power plant in Kearney, just across the Hackensack River from Jersey City. And I think that's the other reason why I'm excited to be here in JC, because of all the communities who will be impacted by this, and it is quite a few, Jersey City is really on the front lines of this project. And yes, I will talk about that as we move on in the presentation. So what is this transit grid power plant project, and why is New Jersey Transit proposing it? So basically, after Superstorm Sandy, we all are at this point, I think, very familiar with the destruction that was wrought by that storm. Portions of New Jersey Transit's train system did lose power, as did much of the state for a period of a couple days, some of us even longer, in parts further afield. And so after the storm, New Jersey Transit was taking a hard look at resiliency, and they applied to FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, for a grant to build more resiliency into their system. And in 2014, they were awarded that grant, and basically it was actually a total of $546 million in federal taxpayer money that New Jersey Transit was awarded. And specifically, the money was to make New Jersey Transit more resilient to future extreme weather events or other disruptions of the power grid, so that they could continue to move people, and particularly move people out of harm's way during future storms. What they came up with in 2014, and it's important to note that that was a different political climate. At the time, we had Republican Governor Chris Christie, who was very open about his affection for the fossil fuel industry. Folks may remember when he was first running for president, while still being a serving governor in New Jersey, he was, openly courting fossil fuel dollars and campaigning for them. But his administration and his team at New Jersey Transit, who he appointed, came up with a proposal to build a methane gas-fired power plant that could power on a microgrid attached to which is a distribution system for electricity that is separate from the central grid, where all of us get our electricity from today. The thinking was that if the central grid goes down, this microgrid could still deliver electricity to power New Jersey's transit trains and other critical facilities during a weather outage. That was all the way back in 2014. And the project never really moved forward up until the Murphy administration came into Trenton. And at that point, we were all pretty hopeful. The governor had run on a platform to transform New Jersey's energy system off of polluting fossil fuels and onto 100% clean, renewable energy. But despite that campaign promise, despite several state laws that have been enacted under the Murphy administration, specifically a law to source 50% of New Jersey's electricity from clean renewable sources by the year 2030, just 8 years away, New Jersey still has less than 10% of our electricity coming from clean renewable energy. The governor also signed a landmark environmental justice law that was really supposed to undo the decades of environmental racism that disproportionately cited major polluting facilities like power plants in low income and communities of color, of which Kearney, checks all of those boxes. So we were all quite hopeful, but despite that hope, the Murphy administration seemed determined to move the project forward. His New Jersey Transit had received basically the federal sign off on their environmental impact statement. So they were going to move forward with this old gas plant, this holdover proposal from the Christie administration. And we started getting organized on this issue. we started attending New Jersey Transit Board meetings and speaking out. We circulated petitions. We held community forums like this one. This is all back in 2019 and 2020. It was a 18-month campaign, very intensive. It saw hundreds of students from schools throughout Hudson and Bergen County getting involved. We even did a what we call a kayaction, where we paddled on kayaks over to the proposed site of the New Jersey Transit power plant to raise banners and really call attention to this dirty energy project that defies all of our current state laws and policies and the governor's commitments and promises. So really, after all of that campaigning and grassroots organizing, we had 13 municipalities and 16 state legislators come out publicly opposed to the project. So it wasn't just us. It wasn't just grassroots communities and environmentalists and rail advocates. It was, elected officials from Hudson County, from Bergen County, from all over the state who were saying, we really should not be moving forward with a new fossil fuel power plant that's going to not only make pollution worse during a pandemic, that's going to make the climate crisis worse when the scientific community is telling us we need to drastically reduce emissions. Why are we increasing them? But so at that time, Governor Murphy actually eventually did come out in 2020, and he directed New Jersey Transit to shelve their plans for this gas-fired power plant and instead replace it with a clean, renewable energy alternative. And boy, were we excited. We thought, we won. This was the moment we had been campaigning for almost 2 full years. So many people putting in so much work, petitioning, canvassing, phone calls. And when this announcement was made, the plan that New Jersey Transit had was they were going to do a redesign of the project. So they were going to actually pay companies. They were going to shortlist 5 companies and stipend them each $1 million to come up with design alternatives to the original gas-fired power plant. And they spent a year trying to redesign the framework for these companies to work with. And when they released that redesigned framework in 2021, we were extremely taken aback because it really was not revised at all. The only thing that was revised was New Jersey Transit's excuses for why they can't do the project with clean, renewable energy, despite the fact that public transit systems across the country, including SEPTA in Philadelphia, even the Patco line in South Jersey, which services the Camden County suburbs into Camden City, getting into Philadelphia. All of them are actually implementing right now solar-powered train systems. New Jersey Transit, in its RFP, at the center of the redesign project, still calls for a massive new gas-fired power plant in Kearney. So that brings us to today and why we're here, because now we are reorganizing our communities to get Governor Murphy to redirect transit to flip-flop back to what they promised they were supposed to do. I realized in my excitement to talk about the organizing and what brought us, what brings us to now, I did neglect to say that the project itself isn't actually, as proposed, wouldn't actually service all New Jersey Transit rail lines. It's specifically for 3 rail lines: the Hudson Bergen Light Rail, the Morrison Essex Line, and a section of the Northeast Corridor that would be powered by this microgrid facility. And go to the next slide.
Why does that matter? It's just a partial solution, is what you're saying?
No, it's just by way of information. So it's not, a solution for all of New Jersey Transit's infrastructure or rail lines. So this is just an image of where the plant is sited. So it's basically, as you can see, it's what they call a brownfield. So the site was a Superfund site. Koppers Coke, which manufactured pet coke, one of the more toxic manufacturing processes you could think of, was on the site since 1942, a ton of legacy contamination on the site, right on the banks of the Hackensack River. And as you can see from this visual, the star indicates where the power plant would be built. And just across the Hackensack River is Jersey City. And just to the north of that, Secaucus. And this is a picture of the old Coppers Cove plant that was there. So it's a very thin cap, and all of that legacy pollution is still on site. So we also have concerns that building a power plant there could actually breach the cap and reintroduce all of that legacy pollution into the Hackensack River, which has been making a historic comeback, and sections of which were just recently added to the federal Superfund site. So the last thing it needs is more risk of more pollution. This is a map that was produced by one of our top grassroots volunteers, Bill McClellan from North Bergen. He basically wanted to show, just because we're in such a densely populated area, that even within the initial ring, the 0.75 mile radius, and especially within the 2 mile radius, we're talking about millions of people who would be directly in harm's way from the emissions that would come from this methane gas burning power plant. And we're going to talk a little bit about the specifics of the health impacts. But Jersey City in particular, if you can see it in relation to the plant, prevailing winds are from the west to east. So on the overwhelming majority of days, the smokestack emissions are going to blow right into Jersey City. And so Jersey City truly is on the front lines of this proposal. And as Deb recently showed, air quality in Jersey is already suffering, and people are suffering because of that poor air quality. And in addition to just the local public health risks, there's a tremendous amount of environmental impacts and also climate impacts. One key point about the project, despite the fact that the grant that New Jersey Transit got from the federal government was specifically to make their system resilient, meaning they could operate it during those rare times like a Superstorm Sandy when the grid is down for a prolonged period, New Jersey Transit is planning to run the power plant 24/7, 365. And they're proposing to earn revenue from selling power to Amtrak to power its trains, at the expense of the health of Hudson County residents, and at the expense of our climate. And that's because annually, by running this power plant 24/7, 365, it would produce over 500 million metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions every single year, which is a very significant number, especially when we have state policies that say we actually need to cut emissions by 2030. That's the scientific target, is we need to get emissions cut in half by 2030 in order to keep warming levels at that 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold, which this global scientific community has said that's really the red line. Once we cross that, it sets into motion critical tipping points in which we might not be able to avoid the worst case scenarios of climate change. Things like melting the permafrost in Siberia would release tremendous more methane that's been safely sequestered under that permafrost into the atmosphere, therefore kicking in a positive feedback loop, which encourages even more warming. So I don't have time to go into detail into all of the environmental and climate impacts, but safe to say they are quite extensive. And so these are a couple photos. You can see a photo from the kayaction we did that was with Hackensack Riverkeeper, Food and Water Watch, Don't Gas the Meadowlands Coalition. That was a really fun day. Right next to it, you can see a picture of a student-led climate strike that was organized in December of 2019, where hundreds of students and other activists rallied at Rutgers Newark campus and then marched over to New Jersey Transit's headquarters in downtown Newark to call on the agency to reverse its plans and move forward with a clean, renewable energy alternative to the gas plant. And we talked a little bit about Governor Murphy's broken promise. Despite that initial intervention 2 years ago, we're right back where we started. And so now is the time to get organized and raise our voices once again, that we simply cannot get out of our climate crisis, let alone address the health impacts from pollution by building new long-term sources of fossil fuel pollution in the state. And so we know that we can stop this. We've stopped it before. And it is going to take a lot of work. But since our initial win, we've actually been working in partnership with the community of Newark on yet another power plant that's proposed. I did say there's 7 total fossil fuel projects moving forward. But using similar grassroots organizing, we stopped a massive power plant proposed in North Bergen, also a low income, largely migrant community in North Hudson County. After a year and a half of pressuring Governor Murphy, he finally came out and stopped that one. We stopped the Williams-Nessie pipeline. That was a massive frac gas pipeline from Pennsylvania through central Jersey and the Raritan Bay. Similar model, grassroots organizing, getting towns and elected officials to weigh in, or working with students and young people and people of all ages getting involved. And so we, in working with the broader coalition that we have, we think this is a fight that we can win and is definitely one that we must win. And the photo on the far right of the screen is a photo from an action this summer where activists actually walked 50 miles from Newark to just outside Governor Murphy's house, or just across the river from Governor Murphy's house in Red Bank in the middle of August, walking 50 miles to really demonstrate the seriousness with which Governor Murphy needs to fulfill his climate promises and walk his climate talk. So we have lots of ways for people to get involved in this fight today. First and foremost, if folks can take out their phone and right here and right now sign the petition before we all forget, that would be wonderful. You can do so by simply texting to the number 23321. So if you start a new text message and put in 23321 into your phone, and in the body of that text, write the word transit and hit send, we will send you the petition link to your phone right now, so you can add your name to that petition. Petitions are not only a way for us to show our political opposition in numbers, but it's also a way for us to get organized. So once you do sign that petition, we can let you know when critical public hearings, rallies, demonstrations are coming up, and decision deadlines, because we are entering the critical phase of this fight. We also, we need more volunteers and more grassroots engagement, particularly with helping circulate that petition to your friends, which is super easy now that you'll have it on your phone. You can share it on your social media, you could share it in email, or text to friends and families. But one of our key priorities at Current is rebuilding the political coalition that we had in 2020 when we stopped the project the first time. And so we are currently circulating a sign-on letter for elected officials that includes elected officials at all levels, from city council all the way up to state legislators and federal legislators. We have over 45 elected officials primarily from Northern New Jersey who are on that letter today, but we need to at least hit 100 before we feel like it's going to be a show of power to again get the governor to act. And so I wanted to recognize Councilmember James Solomon, who not only championed and helped pass the resolution back in 2019. Jersey City was one of the first municipalities to come out against the power plant, but he's also now signed on to the new letter. And I believe Councilmember Joyce Waterman did sign up to join tonight's meeting. So hopefully she's with us and we'll add her name, but we need the rest of Jersey City Council and mayor, as well as Jersey City's state representatives, including Assemblymember Mukherjee, to sign. He might actually be on the letter already. And the county commissioners. So if you can help either by going to a city council meeting and raising this issue during public comments and asking them if they'll sign the letter and bringing a copy of that letter, or if you can join us at a virtual lobby meeting. We're setting up Zoom lobby meetings with your state reps all you need to do is email Sam DeFalco. She's our lead organizer on this New Jersey Transit Power Plant campaign, and her email is on the slide here. And if you email Sam, she will give you all the tools and support you need to effectively lobby your local elected officials to get onto that letter. And lastly, we are commissioning a study with an expert organization and think tank that is, basically has renewable energy engineers who are going to look at the ways that New Jersey Transit can actually use this $546 million to invest into a clean renewable energy alternative, because that technology exists. It has existed for quite some time. And New Jersey Transit is simply either through just sheer inertia and laziness, or because they are actually ideologically aligned with continuing to build new fossil fuel infrastructure amidst the climate crisis, not doing the homework that they need to do to get this project right. And so we're going to do it for them, but we do need to raise some money to do that. And you can contribute, no matter how small, by going to our website, nomeadowlandspowerplant.com, and you'll see on that site a way that you can make a contribution. There's also lots of other information on the website. So that is it for me. But we're going to continue talking about the New Jersey Transit Power Plant with a deeper dive on two sections. One on what exactly are the public health impacts from a methane gas burning power plant? What are the pollutants being released, and how does that impact our lungs and our health, and who's most vulnerable? And to do that, we have a real expert, Dr. Sarah Evans, who's a PhD and MPH and an assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Medicine and Public Health, and a member of the Institute for Exposomic Research at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. That's how smart Sarah is. I don't even know the meaning of that word of the institute that she represents, but her research is focused on the impacts of early life environmental exposures on nervous system development and child behavior. She's a trusted voice on the health effects of toxic chemicals and what individuals can do to protect their own health, as well as how to advocate for healthier policies in their local communities. Dr. Evans lives in Connecticut, but she's graciously agreed to present via Zoom. So I am going to hand it off to Dr. Evans.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Does that, okay, one second. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, hopefully everyone in the room can hear me. And do you see my full screen? Not the notes screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I will continue. So I'm going to talk for just a few minutes about the health impacts of gas-fired power plants. And so I work with a team of scientists and clinicians at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, and I am a part of the Institute for Exposomics Research. And so I will explain to you what that is really quickly. So exposomics is the study of the totality of everything that we're exposed to across our lifespan. So we don't think about exposure to one thing at a time, one air pollutant at a time, but we're thinking about the whole environment that a person lives in and develops in, because we know that all of these factors interact. And so that kind of comes into play in what I'm going to talk about related to the power plant. I also work with the Pediatric Environmental Health Specialty Unit, and we're part of a national network of specially trained environmental pediatricians and scientists, and we serve New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. And so we do consultations with patients, health providers, and communities on creating safer environments. So this is probably not a huge surprise to all of you that chronic diseases are on the rise, particularly over the last 20 years or so. And so this has happened at such a rapid rate that we know that there are environmental factors that are underlying all of these. These are things like neurodegenerative disorders, asthma, which we already talked about, cardiovascular disease, even infertility. And so we know now that environment plays a role in essentially all of these. And we also know that air pollution, which is really a mixture of gases and particulates, are responsible for a number of those increasing health risks. So studies have shown that living near a gas-fired power plant is associated with higher rates of asthma hospitalizations, respiratory infections, and COPD. And it's not just respiratory outcomes that are impacted by exposure to air pollutants. So essentially, every system of the body has been shown to be impacted by air pollution exposures, which is not entirely surprising given that mixture of chemicals that you're actually exposed to when you breathe in air pollutants. So cardiovascular disease, stroke, increased autism risk, lower life expectancy, and also increased COVID-19 severity. So we know many of the regions that would be impacted by this particular power plant were very hard hit by COVID-19. And we know that areas that experience higher air pollutants also had more mortality and more severe outcomes related to COVID-19. So the people who are most affected, obviously, are people who spend more time outdoors or who have pre-existing conditions like asthma or COPD, but also pregnant women, young children, and frontline communities, communities of color and low-income communities. And I'm going to focus a little bit on that as well. So of course, in the work that I do, working in environmental pediatrics, we think a lot about the special vulnerabilities of children. And children are highly vulnerable to exposure to air pollutants like those that we know are emitted from a gas-fired power plant. This is partly because they breathe at a faster rate. They take in a higher volume of air, and so they're exposed to more pollutants than an adult is. They're also more likely to roll on the ground, put their hands in their mouths, put other objects in their mouths. And a lot of the pollutants that come out of a gas-fired power plant actually settle in dust and soil and can get inside homes. So that's another route of exposure. And then children are also more susceptible to the impacts of climate change that are exacerbated by burning of fossil fuels. So children have a harder time regulating their body temperature and responding to extreme temperature changes. Of course, it's not only adults that are highly susceptible to air pollutants and other exposures. So we're very concerned about exposures that occur during pregnancy. We know that children who are born to mothers who are exposed to air pollutants during pregnancy are at greater risk of developing asthma. And the elderly and people with pre-existing conditions are also more vulnerable to air pollutant associated diseases. So thinking about children's health, we actually know that air pollution contributes to 1 in 10 deaths of children under 5 years of age. So that's a really high number. I already mentioned things like autism and behavioral problems have been associated with air pollutants. And it's estimated that air pollution contributes to 600,000 deaths in children under 15. And so I just shown here what happens with one portion of the air pollutants that are emitted by gas-fired power plants, particulate matter. We're still learning about how particulate matter impacts health. But you can see here, we've tried to depict that the very small particulates, PM 2.5, but also ultrafine particulates, which are even smaller than that, penetrate very deeply into the lungs. And that's where a lot of gas exchange happens and where those particulates can enter the bloodstream. And we think that's why they're impacting so many different health outcomes. And so it's not just at what stage of your life you're exposed to these chemicals and air pollutants. It's also your race and ethnicity that can impact your health outcomes. And so we know that environmental racism has led to health inequities in this country. We already talked about Asthma Alley, but you can see here this graph depicting that Hispanic and Black children are experiencing much higher rates of asthma than white children are. And this actually persists if you take income out of the equation. And this is likely because hazardous waste facilities, fuel-fired power plants, and other point sources of pollution, traffic sources as well, are more likely to be sited near communities of color. Black and Hispanic individuals have been shown to have higher body burdens of many chemicals, and multiple exposures like exposure to stress, violence, air pollutants, and other chemicals lead to worse outcomes. So Matt already showed this map, and I put this up again to just emphasize that the EPA finds that there are a higher percentage of minority and low income communities living within 3 miles of a power plant. And again, you can see at the center of this bullseye where the proposed power plant in Kearney would be. And you are likely all pretty familiar with the communities surrounding this area to know that many of them are environmental justice communities that would be highly impacted. And of course, it's not only communities within a 3-mile radius that can be impacted by a power plant. We know even that air pollutants from, for example, wildfires on the West Coast can actually reach the East Coast. So we know that this would have even further reaching impacts on health. And so just to zero in a little bit on Jersey City as an environmental justice community, Jersey City is considered to be overburdened under the New Jersey Environmental Justice Law based on the high percentage of low-income, minority, and non-native English-speaking residents who live in this community. And you can see where the power plant would be, again, marked with an X. Oops. And so looking at some data that the US EPA maintains in a database, and you can find the link at the bottom of the screen here, the EPA Environmental Justice Screener allows you to examine different census tracts to see where they fall in terms of both environmental and health and sociodemographic factors. And I just pulled out a few of them to show. Again, here is the plant marked with the X, and you can see everywhere that you see that's yellow or orange or red, all of these communities have are in the greater than the 80th percentile for air toxic respiratory hazards, for particulate matter 2.5, have high percentage of people of color and a high percentage of low income individuals. So these are all greater than the 80th percentile when you compare them, when you compare these communities to the US as a whole. So these are very highly impacted communities already that really can't sustain another source of air pollutants. And so just to share, touching back on the exposomics idea, this idea of how all of the factors in our environment impact health, and zeroing in a little bit on why certain communities might be more impacted by air pollutants than others. We have studies from our center at Mount Sinai showing that women who are exposed to stress or trauma or violence during their pregnancy, together with air pollution, actually have a higher risk of having a child who will be at risk of asthma later in their life. So women who reported experiencing low stress, but were also exposed to particulate matter 2.5, did not have children who were at risk of developing asthma. But women who were exposed to both stress and air pollutants during their pregnancy had children who were then at risk of developing asthma. So just showing that we have to think about all of the characteristics of these communities that we're going to overburden further by the construction of a power plant. And so lastly, I'll just say, thinking more broadly about indirect health effects of a power plant like this is that you know that a gas-fired power plant is a major contributor to climate change. And there are a myriad of health effects associated with climate change that also affect our most vulnerable populations, including children, including communities of color. New Jersey has already experienced much of this. For example, post Hurricane Sandy, so extreme heat, more severe allergy season, greater insect-borne disease, extreme weather, which causes stress, and so on and so forth. And so I'm going to leave it off here just to say that we have a number of resources, and you can take a picture of these QR codes. We provide guidance for families on how to avoid bad air quality days, how to reduce your own contribution to air pollution and climate change, and a number of other resources related to environmental exposures. And we're also on social media through our institute and through our clinical groups. And that's it. So I thank you for your time.
He's retired, and in his retired life, he's been working diligently, connecting with renewable energy experts and engineers to assess and begin the assessment of how New Jersey Transit can build this microgrid without making it reliant on fossil fuels and instead using clean renewable technologies. So Ken is going to share a little bit about his findings, and Ken, take it away.
Hey, can I?
Ken, we cannot hear you. Can you unmute? Ken, can you hear us? Ken, you're on mute.
Okay,
There we go.
all right, sorry about that. I think I did everything else. All right, let me start over again. So my name is Ken Dalsky. I happen to live in Parsippany. I am not going to be able to, enjoy all the pollution from this power plant, but nevertheless, it is very important for everybody to take whatever action they possibly can to fight not only pollution, but also help us mitigate climate change. And so we've done an awful lot of work on this power plant and have looked at the power needs. And I'm going to talk to you about how this plant could actually, or how this project could actually be built to accomplish New Jersey Transit's needs and avoid all the bad pollution as well as all the climate change problems that it's going to produce. So I think Matt mentioned this, but what New Jersey Transit is looking at in their RFP is enough backup power for 2 weeks worth of operation, assuming that PSE&G goes down for that period of time, which it's never done, but that's what they're talking about. And they want to talk about powering fully powering portions of the 3 lines that Matt showed in the earlier picture, Morrison Essex, Northeast Extension, Northeast Corridor, and the Hudson Bergen light rail. Those are the 3 that were down during Hurricane Sandy, and they plan to run this system as long as they have it, basically every hour of every day, in order to make money, in order to use it for their own power, to sell it back to the grid, to sell it to Amtrak, and to generate revenue for themselves. When we took a really close look at what they need in order to have sufficient power, should there be outages, in order to move trains, at least get the trains that are in operation, to their stations, we found out that they need far less than they're asking for. So first of all, you have to understand that the problem during Hurricane Sandy was that the flooding shut down PSE&G substations. Now, substations, and there's about 18 to 20 of them, I think, in North Jersey, are stations. They don't generate power, but they take the voltage from the main generating stations and they step it down to like 110 volts or 220 so that it could be used in residential and commercial buildings. And it was the flooding that shut down those power stations. It was not that the generators couldn't work. And so PSE&G developed a project called Energy Strong, and they raised all these substations 1 foot over the expected maximum flood level. In addition, there was a substation in the Kearney area that Transit had been using or owned even, and PSE&G took over ownership of that, redesigned it, rebuilt it, and raised it specifically to interconnect to the transit grid. And so the bottom line is that if Hurricane Sandy hit today, New Jersey would not lose power from flooding. Local residents would lose power if you had wind damage and you had trees down and things like that. But there would not be a flooding problem, or at least a flooding problem that affected electricity delivery, and especially transit would not have a problem. So with that problem eliminated, there's really no need to have anywhere near 2 weeks worth of power backup. And in fact, if you do want to have power backup so that you never have a power problem, you have to look at the actual power outages aside from a storm like Hurricane Sandy. There are a number of those, but at most they last only a few hours. Some impact a few trains, a lot of them impact no trains. And so if you looked at, the worst case, you might say that, one of these train lines was down for a few hours. And then the fact is that if you did have an outage like that, it would not take down all 3 train lines at once. It might affect one at most. And so when you look at that, you really, you realize that there can be a much smaller solution that would meet New Jersey Transit's needs. However, we didn't know that. And when we first started working on this project, and we worked with one of the most noted solar engineers in New Jersey on this, we looked at a solution using renewable, sources of energy as well as batteries. And we looked at a 2-week solution. And he came up with the fact that we would need about 95 megawatts of solar, which would take about 380 acres of space. That's about 4 acres per megawatt. And as far as batteries go, we could get by with about 76 megawatts, which would be like the absolute peak need. And that would only take about 2 acres. And New Jersey Transit has been making noise like, they think they're going to need 6,000 acres or something like that for solar in order to power this project. In addition to having those solar and batteries, you do need some firm backup power, because solar obviously doesn't work at night and could have definitely intermittent outages during the day. And so you need a firm source of power that will charge the batteries, keep them charged, but only being used intermittently during outages. And so if you only have a couple of outages a year for an hour or two, you might run these turbines a few times a year. If it's a Hurricane Sandy and you only have it, once every 5 years, then you'd only run these gas turbines, once every 4 or 5 years. So this is, I think, what Matt had described as a renewable energy hybrid microgrid. It combines 2 different sources. It combines solar energy and renewable energy along with a little fossil fuel energy into a grid that will be able to power, they'll be able to run these trains actually, as far into the future as you can imagine. And the other issue that has been brought up by New Jersey Transit has been the space for solar. So we said we need about 380 acres, and one of our members of the Don't Gas the Meadowlands Coalition, Tim Sevener, did a study and looked at all of the potential areas for solar. And I'll just summarize by saying that we think there's about 270 acres on transit properties itself. The Copperas Cove Peninsula, the bulk of it was sold by Carney to a developer, and the developer is building warehouses there that are going to be whose rooftops are going to be solar ready. So that's about another 100 acres. And the whole area has brownfields, landfills, a lot of other rooftops. So we think that there's plenty of space for solar. If Transit was really interested and worked at it, I'm sure that they could find enough space. So the actual power could be far, far less than even 1/3. I picked 1/3 here as if, one of those train lines was actually, was out, but it's far less power than Transit, has specified. The other thing real quick, we've always been challenged by Transit to show them that anybody is doing anything like this because they're never going to be they basically admit they're never going to be the pioneers to do anything for the first time. And so when we look at very large battery systems, we see at least 3 here that are far larger than the 95 megawatts that we think is needed for Transit. And Matt mentioned the Patco speed line. This is a new system. It's about 1/4 of the megawatts that's needed for Transit. This is feeding the solar energy directly into the traction system that's powering trains. It's only a 15-mile route, but it's working and it's saving them about 50% on their energy costs. And then 2 other examples in Europe, Australian Federal Railways is using about 1,100 megawatt hours running trains from Vienna to Hungary and Belgium is running trains from Paris to Amsterdam, all largely on solar. And finally, as Matt mentioned, we are doing a study, we've commissioned it, to demonstrate the financial advantage of a solar battery solution over gas and over what transit is planning to do today. So just a couple of data points here. In 2017, Rocky Mountain Institute did some research that showed that 90% of the proposed gas plants are going to be more costly than a clean energy portfolio using solar. It's also going to be much harder for transit to resell electricity from gas. Gas prices have gone up and are going to go up, and they're going to try to resell electricity probably when it's at peak need, because that's when electricity prices are highest, which is at noontime or during the midday. That's also when solar has its most use effectiveness, and when solar power is most available, which means that it'll be very, very tough for New Jersey Transit to resell it. There are also very profitable battery services. It's like 15 different services that batteries alone can provide, such as arbitrage, which is storing energy when the costs are low and then selling it when the costs are high. Taking peak loads so that you don't have to build new power plants, and operating and using batteries which are extremely responsive and very quickly come online to smooth out load demand. It's also much easier to upgrade solar and battery because they're very, very modular. You're not going to be able to upgrade and do much to get more efficiency out of a gas plant. And eventually this power plant will become a stranded asset. And we want to demonstrate to the legislature, who is spending money every year funding New Jersey Transit, that it would cost them a lot less, or significant, it would cost them less if this plant was built using solar and batteries, and that can make a much better financial contribution to New Jersey Transit's bottom line than a gas plant. And so basically that's all I had to say. We think we have the science and the logic and the history all on our side. We just need to convince Governor Murphy that he would be much better off if he supported a clean energy solution for this project. Thank you.
But we have time for about 1 or 2 questions. So yeah, does anyone in the room here have a question? We'll start with Bill.
Matt, that New Jersey Transit asked these 7 companies to come up with proposals. Whatever happened, I can't imagine that they all came out with methane gas power as their proposal.
Yeah, so we have yet to see the. Oh, sure. So the question from Bill is, whatever happened to the alternative proposals that New Jersey Transit was paying for? So they haven't been published yet, but why we think that they are not going to deliver the renewable energy-based solution that we need is because the request for proposals, which is basically the guiding document that these developers are using to submit their designs, still calls for that gas plant at the center of the project. So what we're expecting is most likely greenwashed solutions that say, oh, we can still be compliant with Governor Murphy's executive orders and laws to get the state to net zero or clean energy by 2050 or net zero emissions. We'll build the gas plant, we'll run it for 27 years, and then we'll convert it to so-called renewable natural gas, or we'll convert it to hydrogen, both of which would still produce emissions, are not truly clean renewable energy solutions. So unfortunately, we just don't have any trust that New Jersey Transit is pursuing this in good faith. The RFP is critically flawed. And so while we will look at those designs, which Transit has said they'll be published either now, like this month, or in early 2023, and we'll be sure to share the findings of those, but we are not holding our breath that this is going to be anything acceptable in light of the climate and environmental justice crises that we face. Yeah, Deb.
So the last bullet, gentleman that was just speaking, I'm sorry, I forget his name, suggested that it's one way to show the counterbalance of the alternatives that associated with what timeline are we working with if New Jersey Transit is releasing those studies. What study was he referring to, and is that coming out at
Yeah.
the same time? And when is all of this supposed to crash?
Yeah, so we are, again, expecting. Okay, so the question was, what is the timeline, particularly in regards to when is New Jersey Transit publishing their alternative designs that they're paying for? And then when are we, our coalition, coming forward with our study that Ken Dulski had referred to? And in terms of New Jersey Transit, we talked about the timeline for that. It's either going to be right before the holidays or in the first quarter of 2023. Although with New Jersey Transit, they do have a penchant for running late. So we won't be surprised if it pushes beyond the first quarter. In terms of our study, we need to fully fund the study before it's going to be published. So they are currently working on it, but we're not going to be able to have it released or published until we pay the full invoice. So we're working with Stratagen is the energy consulting group that has the technical engineers to do this study. So we've given them an initial amount to get the study started. We're hopeful that we can get it fully funded and publish it right around the time that Transit is publishing theirs. But I will say the overall timeline for this fight is going to be at least the entirety of 2023. Even after New Jersey Transit publishes their findings, I use that word lightly, we know that they still have to get all of the permits for the facility. They still have to do an environmental justice review, all of which could take the better part of a year. So we're really entering a critical time in this fight where we need to ramp up again, but it's not as if the final decisions are going to be made on this project in the next month or two. So we do have some time to really build up the coalition and bring this fight directly to Transit and Governor Murphy. I think we're out of time for questions. We will have another Q&A at the end, unless it's something urgent. We can respond to any questions online. We'll record them and send out the questions and answers to all online participants. But I do think we should get moving here. And with that said, I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker on a very similar but different issue. John Richmond and I work together on the coordinating committee of the Empower New Jersey, which is a statewide coalition of 135 environmental, faith, social justice, and other civic groups who are working together to stop not just the New Jersey Transit plant, but all 7 of the fossil fuel projects proposed in New Jersey currently. John in particular is doing a tremendous amount of work on one of those projects, which is also very relevant to Jersey City. And that's the project Deb spoke about earlier, that New Jersey Turnpike expansion project. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to John Richmond of Blue Wave New Jersey and Empower New Jersey to give us the intel on that issue.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I've been told I have 5 minutes, which is good given how long we've gone. So if I go more than 5 minutes, someone give me the hook. But obviously, this is a topic we could spend the entire meeting, an hour or two on. So, but let me sort of summarize how we got where we are right now, how we got there, and how we can sort of win the battle to stop this horrific project. So the Turnpike Authority first publicly revealed this plan as part of their March 2020 capital plan. And the capital plan was frankly just insane. It's a $24 billion plan with $16 billion going to highway expansions around the state, $4.3 billion supposedly going to expand the Jersey City extension, which, as you know, sort of runs from Newark over the Newark Bay Bridge into Bayonne and through the heart of Jersey City. And when we saw this plan, we said, it's just insane. I mean, where are we in the 1950s? I mean, for the last 50 years, all around the country, there's a growing realization that expanding highways doesn't work. It doesn't reduce congestion. All it does is create more traffic, more cars, more pollution, more greenhouse gases, and cities around the country are in fact looking at ways to basically not expand highways, but to take them down. But yet we have this proposal from the Turnpike Authority. But it gets worse. It gets far worse than that. So just 2 months ago, while I was noodling around on the Turnpike Authority website, I saw that this plan that was going to be supposedly 4.3 billion, they are internally now projecting it's going to cost 10.7 billion for a project that everybody opposes. It makes no sense. All right, why is this project so bad? As I indicated before, it will not even solve the problem it's supposed to solve because it's something called induced demand. Experience highway studies show time after time when you expand highways in urban areas, they quickly fill to capacity and you don't even reduce traffic congestion. And unfortunately, the commissioner of the Turnpike Authority doesn't believe in induced demand, which is sort of equivalent to, being a climate denier, because this is an absolute axiom of all highway planning. It's also bad because of the pollutants. Dr. Evans, Deb, Matt talked about this. All of those factors, all of the pollutants that were going to be caused by transit grid are going to be, it's going to be the same effects, maybe even worse, from the Turnpike expansion that runs right along, as Deb said, Asthma Alley. 72.1% of the census tracts closest to the Turnpike expansion are minority communities. So under any metric, this doesn't make sense. So how do we fight this? We fight this politically and we fight this legally. Fortunately, not only, Empower New Jersey is on this campaign, but Jersey City has just a great group of activists, including many of you on this call. So we have been working with the Turnpike Trap Coalition. It's a group of more than 20 Jersey City groups. Jimmy Lee of Safe Streets, Bike JC, Hoboken JC have been primary movers behind Turnpike Trap. And together, we've been organizing some incredible resistance to this just horrible plan. Many of you were probably at the large rally that we had in November about it, which also included an amazing bike ride that Bike JC organized along the route of the highway expansion. And we have a lot of momentum. As probably most of you know, the Hoboken Council unanimously adopted a resolution opposing the project. More importantly, the Jersey City Council has also adopted a resolution opposing the project. Mayor Fulop has come out against it, but we need much more from our elected officials, including people in the legislature who really have not stepped up and represented Jersey City's interest in opposing this project. And we also need to have Jersey City put more skin in the game and not just tweet, but actively oppose the project. So all of you need to really continue to put pressure on your elected representatives to take a stand against this and to stop this project. It's a very winnable fight, but it is going to be a fight. And it's going to be a fight that unfortunately is probably going to go on for a number of years. So that's the big picture. I think that's about my 5 minutes. I'm happy to take any questions and tell you, obviously, any questions that anyone has.
Thank you very much, John. Any questions from here in the audience or online? Yes. Right. So the question, let me just repeat it, is what can we do besides signing signing a petition? What else can we do? So,
well, we go to Turnpike Trap website, sign on there. We're going to basically, and I'm sorry, I'm not as organized as Matt is in terms of giving, places to sign on. It's not just petitions. What we're really going to have to do, whenever you talk to a representative, you need to tell them, get on the stick here. It's not enough to just say you're against it. You have to fight this. We're developing a campaign now over the next year too, where we really want to fight this during the next budget season in the legislature, because there's absolutely no reason why the legislature should allow a $10.7 billion project to go ahead. Think about what we could do with $10.7 billion to improve the lives of people in Jersey City and the region. Expanding the light rail line, improving public transportation, bikeways, walkways, etc. And one other thing actually that I probably should have mentioned in my opening remarks is a little bit more about greenhouse gases. In New Jersey, 40% of the greenhouse gases come from the transportation sector and come from vehicles. And the largest driver of greenhouse gases is vehicles mile traveled. So expanding highways is exactly the wrong way to go. It's going to be the worst thing that you could do if you were ever serious about reducing greenhouse gases in the state.
And thank you, John. And I would just add the other absurdity of expanding the highway going into the Holland Tunnel when the tunnel itself can't be expanded, or that would be many billions more to do that. So you would just have all these vehicles queuing up at the tunnel entrance.
Well, not only in the tunnel entrance, you couldn't be more right. And there are going to be much more cars on local Jersey City streets. Incredibly enough, the Turnpike Authority has admitted they've never done any kind of traffic study whatsoever to show what the impact would be on local Jersey City streets.
Good grief.
Isn't that illegal? Not to-
Yeah, the question, John, from Deb is, isn't it illegal? Aren't they required to do an impact study?
Well, this could be a long discussion, but the bottom line is this is what their strategy, this is what the Turnpike Authority strategy is. They're asking that right now the Coast Guard is supposedly the lead agency. Shouldn't be, should really be the Federal Highway Authority, to determine whether or not an environmental impact statement is required. We have already written to the Coast Guard and said, look, you have to do an environmental impact statement, not just on the bridge, which is the first phase of the project, but the entire project. And you have to consider air pollutants, you have to consider greenhouse gases, you have to consider wetlands, you have to consider environmental justice. The Turnpike Authority is doing whatever they can to convince the Coast Guard Authority to basically approve the bridge permit without doing an environmental impact statement. So there's a legal strategy and a political strategy. Also I'm a lawyer, and so we're hopefully going to be working with at least one of the leading environmental justice firms in the state on the legal front to make sure there's an environmental impact statement required for the project.
Good. Okay, any more questions? All right, thank you, John. Let's give John a hand.
Thank you, everyone.
And now it's my great pleasure to introduce one of my personal heroes, Sam Pessin, the longtime president of the Friends of Liberty State Park. Sam has devoted just about all of his free time in the past 30+ years to protecting the park. And his father, Morris Pessin, was the father of Liberty State Park. And it's a constant battle. And for those of us who are park supporters, it's just astounding that these threats to the park, this precious resource, keep coming up. Sam is infinitely more knowledgeable about it than I am, and I will turn it over to him now. Sam.
Thank you, Bill. I'd be there in person. I'm getting over COVID, and to save time, I'm going to mostly just read this summary of 3 concurrent battles now for Liberty Park. So, and thanks to everyone who spoke tonight and all the activism that everyone's engaged in. And Liberty Park continues to need people's activism after 46 years of grassroots battles to protect the park. It's really sacred public land because it's very scarce, free and green urban open space and urban nature in this crowded concrete area. It's our urban backyard. And it's also sacred because it's behind the Statue of Liberty with dramatic views of the Manhattan skyline, which is what is always been craved by profiteers. So the park, as all parks and nature does, it provides major quality of life benefits. It's an emotional, mental, spiritual, physical health public resource where people of all ages, colors, religions, and cultural backgrounds enjoy themselves in a multitude of free outdoor activities. So the first battle, maybe you got an email or saw on Facebook, the National Park Service, in cahoots with the tourist helicopter industry, has a draft agreement to have tourist helicopters fly directly over Liberty Park all day, every day. So Sam DeFalco, I don't know if you got my email today, but there's some stuff to put in the chat about where, or you can go to the Friends homepage, Friends of Liberty State Park. The first banner, oh, there we go. Thank you. If you can please go to that link and just one sentence say that you oppose this plan because it would something like do severe harm to people's quality of life, enjoyment of Liberty State Park. It's, as someone else used a term, insane. This is, and I'm really trying not to curse, which I usually do when talking about Liberty Park, but this is insane to have helicopters flying over people's barbecues, choose up games, and are going to the park to refresh our spirits and enjoy friends and family. So that's the first battle. The deadline is Friday, December 30th at 11:59 at night. Now, just really briefly, many of you were supportive of the protection law, which we pushed for 3.5 years. It was essential to end all the decades of battles. The essence of park history is that people have put democracy into action and have fought battle after battle for the park. Tens of thousands of people, the overwhelming majority of the broad public consensus has always been against privatization, commercialization of this important quality of life park. So we needed a Protection Act, but the billionaire Paul Fireman, who owns the adjacent luxury Liberty National Golf Course and his funded surrogates, killed the Protection Act with their lies and smear attacks. And last June, they replaced the Protection Act, which had 111 groups in the coalition and 33,000 petition signatures. And it was thrown into the gutter by Fireman's gang. And they got a non-protection law passed in June, which sets up a task force that will be dominated by firemen surrogates and now appointments that will be political patronage. So let me get to when they passed the billionaires Liberty Park law, there was some pushback. So Senator Stack, who facilitated that billionaires law, he introduced a law just to protect the Caven Point natural area, which is an important 22-acre peninsula. It's a migratory bird habitat and nesting area. It's on the Atlantic Flyway. It's an urban science STEM education resource for over 600 students a year. And it's a peaceful oasis for urban people and all visitors. So Paul Fireman, the billionaire, wants to destroy Caven Point for several years now to relocate golf holes for his multi-millionaire members. And so that bill passed out of the Senate Judiciary Committee in August. So we're waiting to see whether Speaker Coughlin, who has been an obstructionist of the Protection Act, will move the Haven Point Protection Bill forward. So we will need everyone's help when it does get hopefully on the agenda in early January to get it passed and get it to the governor. So that would be a significant victory to at least protect this Haven Point natural area. Now, the third battle is regarding the interior of the park. That's where people fought in the early 90s to stop a 225-acre golf course and 150-acre golf course, a commercial water park, and other commercial plans. So we set the stage for what is a long planned and now fully funded, great, spectacular natural area. It'll be one of the largest urban natural areas in the world, 165 acres of diverse habitats and miles of paths. And this DP was the first to say that they would approve of active recreation in state parks. So there's the 165 acres of nature, 50 acres of free active recreation based on 3,600 surveys of ball fields, track and field areas, basketball, normal, great stuff like that. But the billionaire in cahoots with local developers and his puppets, they want to kill the DP's plans. And the interior nature areas are at almost 60% engineering detailed design. So there'll be a public meeting about that. And firemen's people want to have in the interior instead a 7,000 seat commercial concert venue, 5,000 seat stadium, and a 2,500 seat stadium. So that's just the kind of commercialization, privatization plans that people have fought over the years, that the Protection Act was meant to stop. And those commercial venues on all nice weekends will create unpreventable traffic jams, no matter how many shuttle buses they have and how many parking lots, because the severe consequence will be that regular people won't be able to get into the park because of traffic jams, and also those venues won't be affordable to lower income people, and it just casts aside the whole purpose of a park like Central Park. To, small scale commercial activities are fine, but not what this battle is going to be about. So please just follow the saga of Liberty Park through social media and whatever emails you might get, because we'll certainly need your help. That task force, which has about 4 of the billionaire's puppets already on it, and there's 2 political appointments already made for it. They'll have open meetings and then eventually 2 or 3 public hearings. So as everyone's been saying tonight, and as John was talking about, it's all, and what we're all about is grassroots people power. And we must and we will persevere and prevail. So thank you. That's about the most concise I can do it. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Sam, that was fabulous. And thank you, as always, for all your effort in protecting this precious resource for the people of New Jersey and indeed for all the world to enjoy. And good luck in your recovery from COVID. Any questions for Sam? Deb.
Hey there, Sam. Deb Italiano here. So do we have the opportunity, you and I spoke about getting someone on that task force that can help in representing our side?
So the question is from Deb is, do we, the community groups, have an opportunity to get a representative appointed to this task force?
Well, a core group of environmental groups Empower New Jersey, New Jersey League of Conservation Voters, Baykeeper, a couple others, a couple of months ago sent a letter to the governor and Senate President and Assembly Speaker, specifically urging for 3 excellent appointments. And then Senate President appointed 2 of his political connections, and we'll see. I don't know how much hope there is for the governor or Coughlin to appoint, ideally three of those three excellent people. The one hope is that the two DEP chairs of the task force, one is Craig Dorset, who's now based at Liberty Park, and he's in charge of Liberty Park and the Hudson Essex Greenway. And so they get to appoint 4 Jersey City people. And from what I've heard, the 3 or 4 people have contacted him who are good community activist people. So we can talk about that, another time specifically, Deborah, but but right now it's just out of a committee of 23 people and some DEP people I'm the only one who would fight against those privatization plans. So there is some hope that a couple more people, one of the people who recommended herself to for the Jersey City appointments is Paula Mahayasnan, who is president of the Jersey City Parks Coalition, representing about 25 local groups. So, the Friends are also urging evening meetings, so working people can attend those meetings and not just have, retired people for the most part going in the daytime. So that's it.
Okay. Any more questions for Sam? If not, we can circle back, and any questions for Matt or Dr. Evans, if she's still on, or also Ken Dulski or John Reichman. Any questions for any of those? Matt, why don't you come up? Any questions? Yes, Deb.
The question, so whoever from the federal government, New Jersey, they're way to leapfrog over the state, get to that funding source, and look at some qualifying issues that would have them be able to weigh in around this funding.
Okay, so or Matt, why don't you repeat the question and then?
Okay. Yeah, so the question was, because New Jersey Transit's project is federally funded, can we bypass the state and go right to the federal agency and advocate with them and point to the critical issues that we found? I think the answer is both. Yes, we can try and do that. FEMA. And that ultimately, Governor Murphy is the decision maker. Not only does he control New Jersey Transit, but he also can, through his DEP, deny the permits that the facility would need. I think the challenge with, we can raise issues and I think we should. It's funny that you brought this up because FEMA has actually said recently in formal documents that gas fire generation is not how they recommend building resiliency. There's issues with the pipelines during winter months that can freeze up.
Even their new policies that could be grandfathered back, they're saying any funding now can't be that, right? Anything new can't be that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a 2014 grant, so they might not be held to those requirements. But you're right, we should go back to FEMA. We should point out how New Jersey Transit is both manipulating the grant to use it to generate revenue, not just for resiliency, and point out that it's, that it's gas and that goes against FEMA's recommendations for resiliency, as well as other issues that we've raised. So it's a good point. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So the question was, or is, will the New Jersey Transit project trigger NEPA? And for folks who might not be familiar, NEPA is the National Environmental Policy Act. It's one of the strongest environmental laws that we have in the United States. It was actually just in the last weeks and months being targeted by Senator Manchin. Folks may have heard about his dirty deal that he made with Chuck Schumer to repeal key aspects of the National Environmental Policy Act around what are called environmental impact statements and assessing the full depth and breadth of public impacts associated with major infrastructure developments. Thankfully, just tonight, we, thanks to grassroots efforts, got enough Senate votes to vote that down again. For the third time now, we've stopped the dirty deal. It'll probably come back for a fourth time, but we will be there again to defeat it. But the answer is yes, it did trigger NEPA. New Jersey Transit did conduct an EIS, which the federal government did approve and give a final record of decision on. So they have cleared that. 2018, I want to say, was when the final ROD was issued. Yep. So, we can go back and look if there's like statute of limitations and how long that. Okay. Yeah. But again, the governor of New Jersey has tremendous amount of authority to stop this. He's said all of his policies and commitments suggest that he should. So we can look at all those angles, but I do think that the governor is ultimately the main decision maker and target here, because it has the EIS, but doesn't have any of the permits. It needs a Clean Air Act permit. It needs an environmental justice permit. So there's going to be public hearings throughout the course of 2023 that we can mobilize for, and hopefully we can stop it before it even gets there. But that's a great question. Paula.
Sarah Evans worked with healthcare providers and scientists and developed a letter and sent a letter to Governor Murphy. It was in reference to the Passaic Valley Sewage Commission proposal for a power plant in the Iron Belt, but it's the same issues, the exact same pollution issues. And it's about the combined impacts of with the new proposal. And so we can send a copy of that to people who signed in tonight. And also Sarah Evans developed a PowerPoint, which she showed in Kearney, but also a slightly different one for tonight. But we can also get copies of that. That would be very useful. So we have the mailing list. Liz has the mailing list over here. And people who registered online too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So Paul was just sharing some of the resources that we have available, including Dr. Evans, along with over 100 of her colleagues. Doctors signed a letter to the governor calling on him to reverse course on a very similar gas plant proposal in Newark's Ironbound community by the Passaic Valley Sewage Commission. Also, Governor Murphy controls that agency, so he should be able to follow his own policies and do the right thing and switch that one over to clean renewables. But anyone who signs in via the sign-in sheets, we can follow up with to send more resources. We can also try to get those up on the website. But before I forget, the two phenoms in the yellow t-shirts, Liz and Paula are grassroots leaders. Oftentimes you get to pick one person that goes up to the podium to speak, but they do so much of the grassroots organizing work that got us the first victory. Liz was the impetus for this partnership, along with Deb and Bill, for tonight's forum. So huge round of applause for Liz Ndoye and Paula Rogovin. Also behind the curtain, so to speak, is our North Jersey organizer, Sam, who's running all the tech to have speakers from Connecticut and Montclair, New Jersey, and elsewhere in Jersey City, all zooming in, being people online and in the room, being able to seamlessly interact with the same content it is not an easy task, and Sam makes the magic work. So thank you, Sam. S- Sam, yes, it is being recorded.
One last question.
Yeah.
Because so much of this just seems, in my mind, and you guys do this every day, many years in the canoe. It just seems so out of alignment. It begs the question, what's really going on here with the governor?
Yeah.
So just like to state the obvious, I mean, the most progressive environmental justice legislation in the country, XYZ coming out of, in terms of the state's plan, for climate change, emissions reduction. It's just, and everything that you guys have done somehow has not worked. So what to do and what's really going on and what, it's confusing.
Yeah. I mean, so the question is, what's going on if we have a governor who's saying all the right things and, enacting policies and signing laws? Why are we still facing 7 new fossil fuel projects, largely proposed in EJ communities, the same communities he's, the law he signed is supposed to protect? And what do we need to do to win more broadly in these issues? And I think some may be surprised for me to say this, but the problem is bigger than Governor Murphy. Governor Murphy is definitely a big part of the problem in New Jersey. But ultimately, we have a political system in this country and in the state in particular that serves the interests of the politically connected. It's how Paul Fireman is advancing his agenda in Liberty State Park as a billionaire. I haven't met a single person who thinks that it's a good idea to pave over Cave and Point and put up luxury golf holes for billionaires. Like, if we did a poll of Jersey City residents, I guarantee it'd be 99% would say that's a terrible idea. Don't do it. Same with the Turnpike expansion. But these are the ideas that are gaining traction in our political system. And I think ultimately the anecdote, as it always is people power and grassroots organizing. We need to make our voices louder than the lobbyists and the billionaire class that are trying to advance their agenda against our best interests and against the survival of life as we know it on this planet. It is not going to be an easy fight. The other side has all the money, but we have all the people. And that's why I implore all of us to do whatever we can. It can be as simple as sharing the petition with 3 friends. It could be as simple as attending one Jersey City Council meeting and using that public comment period to call on your mayor and city council to join us in signing on to this letter against the power plant. There are ample ways to get involved. Email Sam. She can support you through those ways. And it's a joyful, fun place to be. Paula, Liz, Sam, Deb, Bill, we have so much fun when we organize. I hope some of the photos demonstrated that. It's not all meetings. It's a lot of socializing. It's a lot of art. It's a lot of creativity. And so it's not only the right thing to do, but it's the joyful thing to do. So hopefully we'll continue to get bigger and more powerful and take on these interests and win because we have to.
Thank you, Matt. So Deb and I just want to thank all of you who are here and also those of you watching on Zoom. Special thanks to our speakers, to Matt, and also to Sam for being the technology coordinator, to Dr. Sarah Evans and Ken Dalsky, John Reichman, and my good friend Sam Pesson. And this is a call to action on all of these issues, and it's utterly baffling that Governor Murphy, who speaks and like a strong environmental supporter, but on these 3 big issues, he's on the wrong side, it seems. So, and I also want to thank Veronica Gerasimo, our good friend from Hudson County Community College, for being here, staying late tonight to help us conduct this meeting. And now for final words, Deb.
Yes, just saying thanks to everyone. This was great. Love the offer to have some resource information distributed. We'll publish that on our website so that it is an always accessible set of resources for folks. So thank you very much, everyone. This was a great collaboration. And I hope, sooner than later, we could move the needle. Right? So talk to us
On
about
all
what you
these
need.
issues.
Right. Exactly. Thank you very much.
Okay. Happy holidays, everyone. Take care and good night.
Yeah. Same as always.